Hello again, watch friends. Welcome back. We're looking at a pair of Parms. That is Parmigiani Kalpa and the Parmigiani Hebdomadaire. The brand is Parmigiani Fleuriers. It's actually, the full name is Manufacturers Horlogerie de la Foundation. They've been around for almost 20 years. On the right side is the Parmigiani Kalpa. Now, I did a previous video on the Kalpa, and I'll put a link above so you can check it out. I won't go into too much detail about the Kalpa, other than to say that it was my first tonneau style watch. I like the 1930s-ish Art Deco look to the watch. It's a gorgeous watch. The size is just right, and if we measure it, you can see that the width is about 32.5 millimeters. The length is from end to end is about 46. So it's 32 by 46. And the thickness is a very svelte 9 millimeters. So it's more or less the size of a traditional round dress watch, but I think it's the perfect size. And if I put it on my wrist, you can see that, for me anyway, it looks perfect. Very nice watch. It's an automatic, and if we look on the back, you can see it's got a beautiful gold rotor. You can see that there. Of course, you got the Geneva stripes on the movement. Really nice detail on this caliber. Signed crown. Just a gorgeous watch. So I wasn't sure I'd like it, but I'm really glad I got this tonneau style watch. Now, before I discuss the latest addition to the collection, the Hebdomadaire, I want to say a few words about Parmigiani Fleuriers. So Michael Parmigiani got his start as a watchmaker restoring antique watches, and he went on to manage the Sandoz Family Foundation collection. They were so impressed with him that as a result, the Sandoz family decided to back him to create his own line of watches, which he did almost 20 years ago. Michael Parmigiani is recognized as one of the premier independent watchmakers. And within the foundation itself, essentially all watch parts are made. Therefore, the movement is a true in-house watch movement, and the watch itself is completely in-house. And the reason for that is that the foundation has either owns or has controlling interest in companies that make movements. That's Fleuriers. Small parts such as screws and pinions, that's Elwin. They have a company that makes hairsprings and balance wheels, that's called Kalpa. A company makes cases, Les Artisans Bordier. Watch bands are made by Hermes, and Hermes is also partly owned by the Sandoz Foundation. And finally, dials, there's a company called Quadrants et Habillage that makes dials. So all the parts of this watch are made by some company in the Sandoz Family Foundation. So let's talk about this particular watch. This is the Parmigiani Kalpa XL Hebdomadaire, and I need to tell you a quick story about how I saw this. I went into New York City to look at another watch, and I stopped at a couple of different authorized dealers like I often do. And this watch was in the case, and I just fell in love with it. That's all I can say. Now, the first thing that struck me, of course, is the champagne dial. You can see that it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous dial. The watch is a little bit larger, so if we measure the Hebdomadaire, we come in at a width of 39 millimeters instead of 32 for the Kalpa. And if we look at the length of the watch, it's 49 millimeters instead of the Kalpa, which we measured at 45. So it's a little bit taller, definitely wider, and the thickness is slightly thicker than the Kalpa. It's 11.2 instead of 9. So it's a slightly bigger watch, and I was a little bit worried about the size because even though I have a fairly large wrist, 7.5 inches, I wasn't sure how this would wear. I'll put it on the wrist shortly, and you can see that it looks fine. So let's talk about the watch. So it's kind of difficult. There we go. You can see that all the hands, the hour and minute hands, the power reserve hand, and the seconds hand are all truly blued. Gorgeous hands. Getting a little reflection there. It has delta-shaped hands, which are skeletonized, kind of a trademark of Parmigiani. The date window at the bottom is very easy to read. In fact, the Kalpa is the same way. It's just so easy to read. You don't need to squint. It's right there for you to see when you need it. And of course, it's got that beautiful guilloche sunray pattern on the dial, at least on the uppermost level. And when including the date disc at the bottom there are really 4 levels on the dial. So you have the upper level, which is the guilloche with the gold Arabic numerals 2, 4, 8, 10, and 12. Look at that guilloche. It's just gorgeous. So that's the upper level. The next level down is the insert round depression where the marquee is. Of course, Parmigiani, Fleuriers, right there, you can see. And you can see that it's the circular portion is a little bit depressed. And then further still, the seconds counter is depressed even more. You can see how that's even lower than the circular pattern. And then finally, the date disc visible through the window at 6 o'clock. So really there's four levels to this watch on the dial. And all of that adds to a very high degree of visual interest, I think, and balance. And it provides a three-dimensional aesthetic to the watch. I could look at this for hours. It's just so enticing. And what I often do is when I go to check the time, I just linger and look at the dial. I'm sure you can relate to that if you're a true watch aficionado. So the case is stainless steel, extremely comfortable Hermes alligator strap with a signed buckle. If we look at the buckle, you can see it's signed, the Parmigiani logo on there. It has a deployant clasp. And of course, it's got the famous signed crown, Parmigiani on the crown, the P for Parmigiani. It also has the distinctive Parmigiani teardrop style lugs. These are kind of a trademark with Parmigiani. And even though it looks kind of large, because the teardrops are facing down, it really hugs the wrist. So it wears smaller than one would think by looking at the watch. Let's see what else. If we look at the movement on the back, there's a close-up shot, an upside-down shot of the movement. There we go. So one of the signs of a high-end watch is that the movement fills the case back. It's not some off-the-shelf movement that they put into a rectangular, square, or tonneau-shaped watch, and there's all kinds of gaps around the movement. No, this movement was designed specifically for this watch. It's the hand-wound caliber PF110. Got an 8-day power reserve. In fact, that's where the name comes from. If we look at the name here, Hebdomadaire, in French, that means weekly. So up here on the power reserve indicator, you see that there's the 8 days, and I see that I have 3 days left on this wind. It takes about 79 winds to fully wind the watch, in case you're interested. And it uses the double barrel system to ensure that it's a steady 8 days of power. Notice let's go back to the movement. Notice the finishing on the movement. You can see that it's got the Côte de Genève pattern. It's got beveled edges on the plate. You can see that there. It's got circular greening on the bridges. This may be a little bit difficult to see. Got a swan neck regulator here at the bottom right corner. And it runs at 3 hertz, 21,600 beats per hour. In fact, many high-end watches use a lower BPH because they find that it's easier to regulate. It gets a more consistent accuracy, and you'll find that quite a bit. So both the movement and the dial, in fact, the entire overall watch, just exudes quality. This is one gorgeous watch. From almost any angle, it's a gorgeous watch, and the alligator strap is extremely comfortable. It's like you're not even wearing a watch. There's the Parmigiani logo on the strap, the PF logo. Here's a shot of the Hebdomadaire on my wrist. And you can see that it really isn't, sure, it's a larger watch than the Kalpa, and it's a larger watch in general, but it doesn't look excessively large. It's not out of place. Now, one thing I did notice that I had to cinch up the buckle because it's a little bit heavier, and when it's loose on the wrist, it tends to fall backwards in that direction. So it tends to go like that, whereas when it's a little bit tighter, it maintains its position on my wrist. So that's it. The Parmigiani Fleuriers Hebdomadaire. It's a beautiful watch and one of my favorites in my collection. and just get another shot of both of these watches. In fact, I really like both of them. The Hebdomadaire is a little bit more dressy, I think, than the Kalpa. Kalpa is, I won't call it a sport watch, but it's more, I don't know, it's maybe a weekend watch, if there is such a thing. But I've worn this Hebdomadaire on weekends. I've worn it with jeans and polo shirt. I mean, it's just really, really nice. So, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button to be notified of future videos. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.